Welcome to the HTH Church podcast. We are a church in the heart of Hastings whose desire is to build communities of people who are so passionate about being with Jesus, becoming like Jesus, and joining him with what Jesus is doing, that lives, families, and communities are changed and transformed one at a time. On this podcast, you can keep up to date with the latest talks from our Sunday services, as well as additional bonus episodes which include conversations, interviews, devotions, and much more. If you'd like to find out more about the church, you can visit our website, hthchurch.org. Otherwise, we hope you enjoy this episode.
I'm going to read from Hebrews, if I may, Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 to 3. Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 to 3. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so you will not grow weary and lose heart. It's a story about a famous diamond dealer in New York called Harry Winston. And Harry Winston heard that there was a Dutch businessman who was wanting a particular type of diamond. And Harry Winston thought he had a diamond that this Dutch businessman would really want. And so he gave the call to the Dutch businessman, and the Dutch businessman flew over from Holland to New York. He went into the store, and Harry Winston assigned to him one of his best salesmen. And the salesman started to describe in great technical detail this beautiful diamond. He gave an overview of it and described it, all its facets, and why the Dutch businessman would want to buy it. Having gone through that process, the businessman decided not to buy it. And so Harry Winston stepped in and said, may I have one more go just to show you this diamond? And Harry Winston took the diamond and described his admiration for it. And as he went through, the Dutchman decided to buy it, and he bought it. And the businessman, as he was paying for it, said, "Why is it that you were able to sell me this diamond and your salesman was not?" And Harry Winston said, "This is one of my best salesmen, but I have something that he doesn't have. He knows all about diamonds, but I love them." Harry Winston captivated by that diamond, and his captivation allowed him to pass that on to somebody else. Next week, we're starting our Jacob series, and we're going through Genesis each week, looking at the story of Jacob. But this week, I was asked to talk about what might be a bit of our vision for this term. What might our church be like this term? What might I be like this term? What might you be like this term? And the phrase that came to me while we were worshipping last week on Sunday morning was, "May we be continually captivated by Jesus." May we be continually captivated by Jesus. Because if you are continually captivated by Jesus, and I am continually captivated by Jesus, then everything will be okay, and this term will be great. And this passage that we have read points us a little bit on how to do that. But it struck me as I was thinking about the captivation that Jesus brings, that when Jesus was on this earth, people were continually captivated by him in extraordinary ways, which meant that everything else paled into insignificance compared to the beauty and the nobility and the purity and the goodness and the wisdom and the power of Jesus. So the writer to the Hebrews, and this is chapter 12 that I just read out, but the very first chapter, chapter 1, the writer to the Hebrews wants to let them know what this letter, this narrative of Hebrews is going to be about. And it's going to be about Jesus. And he describes Jesus in the letter of Hebrews. And he says that Jesus is the radiance of God's glory. The radiance. If you imagine the sun and all its radiance and the way it lights up everything else, that Jesus is the radiance of God's glory, an exact representation of his being, sustaining everything, the writer says, by his powerful word. Let's dwell on that. The radiance of Jesus, the radiance of God's utmost glory, the power of Jesus, sustaining everything by his powerful word. And then people came into contact with Jesus when flesh incarnate, God, the invisible God made flesh, appearing in Jesus. And then Jesus starts walking around, and one of the people he comes across is Matthew, Levi, the tax collector. And it says that Jesus goes up to him in his tax booth. Can you imagine what a tax booth would be like? There would be all the money that would be piling up in piles. He collected the tax on behalf of the Romans. And here he was doing this job. And you had to be pretty obsessive to do that because it was such an unpopular thing to do. Everyone hated you for collecting the money of your people on behalf of the oppressors. But Matthew was able to do that because of his love of that money, a love of that cash. And Jesus walks by, and all it says is that he says to Matthew, "Follow me." And Matthew stands up and follows him. That's the brevity of the sentence in the Bible, but it must have been a much more compelling thing, if you can just imagine it, that Jesus goes by and there's something so radiant, so powerful, so amazing, so good, so wise, something so noble, something about Jesus that so attracts Matthew that he gives up all of that profiteering and cash and sets it all at a loss for following Jesus, captivated by Jesus. Or we see another occurrence in John chapter 12, and this time there's Mary and there's Martha, and Jesus has been to their house before, and they live with the brother Lazarus, and they're all reclining at the table. And there's something about Jesus that makes Mary do this extraordinary thing, where she takes half a liter, and just imagine in your mind, I don't know if you drink a liter of something, but you can imagine half a liter of perfume, of the most expensive perfume, pure nard it's called in the account. And there's the half a litre. And Mary takes it. How did she get all that expensive perfume? What could she have done with that perfume? She decides to kneel down and pour it all over Jesus' feet, and then wipes her hair on his feet, and wipes his feet, cleans his feet with that incredible, extravagant perfume mixed in with her hair. Mary was captivated by Jesus. Can you imagine what it must have been like for Mary to do that publicly in front of everyone? All the just sheer passion in Mary to want her, while everyone else is reclining, to submit herself and pour herself and give herself away because she was captivated by Jesus. Or think about Paul. Paul, called Saul previously, who was persecuting the church, and that was what he was known for, going around actively pursuing the church, trying to lock them up, trying to persecute them, hating the church, wanting it to stop. Having that encounter with Jesus on the road to Damascus. And then later on, he writes to the church in Philippi. And this is what he says. I count everything as loss compared to the surpassing worth of knowing Christ Jesus my Lord. For his sake, I have suffered the loss of all things, and I count them as rubbish, in order that I may gain Christ and be found in him. Everything I had before, Paul says, everything I have in my life is counted rubbish in comparison to the significance of Jesus. Paul was utterly captivated by Jesus. I remember when I was about 13 years old, coming into a greater understanding of who Jesus was and the power of Jesus in this earth. And I remember reading a book about somebody who would pray for 2 hours a day and would see amazing things happen for Jesus and the transforming power of Jesus through prayer. And I remember thinking, I can't pray for 2 hours a day, but I could set aside Sunday afternoon to pray for 2 hours. So after church, I'd go home as a 13, 14-year-old, and I would kneel by my bed. I'd read my Bible, and I'd pray. There was something about Jesus that captivated me as a teenager. There's something about the knowledge of who he is and his love and his desire for all of us and the way he wants to move across the world that I found absolutely captivating. It was more than anything else as a teenager that I thought this world could offer. I'd go and pray every day after school for half an hour. I'd pray for my friends. I'd pray for I'd pray for anything that I could, because I just wanted to know more of God in my life. And you know what? I don't want to lose that as a church leader. I don't want to be captivated by church buildings, or I don't want to be captivated by all kinds of other things. I don't want to be captivated by anything other than Jesus. And I'm here still going on at this age, at this stage of my life. And I still want to be captivated by Jesus. And this writer to the Hebrews gives us a few things which can help us to continue to do that. And the one thing that he starts off by saying is, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. Let us throw off everything that hinders. I mean, if there's something so captivating to you, you will throw off everything else that stops you being captivated by that thing to which you are captivated, because nothing else will be as important to you. If you're running a race, and this is the analogy that the writer uses, running a race. If you run a race and you've got baggage on you, that will slow you down and make it a lot harder, which is why if you see, and I was running the Hastings, I nearly said Hastings half marathon. Actually, it wasn't. It was on Saturday. It was the park run. I was running the Hastings park run on Saturday, and you see the ones who are right at the front. They've got vests on. That's because any other little bit of material will slow them down. They have thrown off everything else. They throw off. If you want to be captivated by Jesus and to know him fully, you will throw off anything else that entangles you. Any sin that wraps around you, you want to get rid of it, because it's got no help in order for you to be running that race for Jesus. Anything that is holding you back, hindering you, you will get rid of it, because you know that you have to throw off. And this is an active word, throw off. You have to throw off anything that entangles you, that stops you being captivated by Jesus. That's the first thing. And it strikes me, because in the news every now and again, you get a church leader who has fallen, a church leader who's done something, there's some incident. And over the last few years, there's just been so many. A lot of my heroes from 10 years ago, they've done things and they're no longer in church leadership. And all the time, something has captivated them more than Jesus. It might be power, it might be money, it might be sex, it might be something else. But there's always something that has captivated them more than Jesus. Throw off those things, this passage says. And secondly, it says, let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. Let us run with perseverance the race that is marked out for us. That means there's a race marked out for you, and there's a race marked out for you, and there's a race marked out for you. There's an individual race marked out for you that you need to run. There's a race that is marked out for us as a church community that we need to run collectively. And it says run with perseverance. My brother-in-law is an ultra marathon runner. In the end of this month, he's running something called a Spartathlon, which is one of the original races where this guy in ancient Greece ran from Athens to Sparta. He then ran to marathon, that's where the marathon came from. But from Athens to Sparta, it's 153 miles. And in order to qualify for that, you really have to do that whole ultra marathon. I think it's about 6 marathons in 36 hours. So my brother-in-law, Andy, is getting on a plane, going to Greece later this month, and he will be running 153 miles in less than 36 hours. And I was thinking about that when I was thinking about this passage, which is run with perseverance. Because the word race here is agonar, which is where agony comes from. Run the race, agony, with perseverance. If you're running a race, whether you run the park run of 5K or you run 153 miles, at some point you've just got to keep putting one foot in front of the other, and you go through the agony, and you live with the agony, and you progress through the agony. And it's as though the writer here is saying at some points, the journey that you will be on, it might just be hugely hard, where you just need to dig deep and persevere through that agony. It's not going to be necessarily an easy ride to run your race. So those points when it is hard and it is feeling like agony, and you wonder whether you can continue, and you wonder how long you have to put up with this, you still continue because you are captivated by Jesus. And thirdly, here it says, and keep your eyes fixed on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. The temptation is over this year, next year, the year after that, at some point we might grow weary and lose heart. But the writer says, fix your eyes on Jesus. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross. For the joy set before him, he endured even the cross. What was it? What was the joy set before Jesus that kept him going? And if you think about it, what was the joy? Because Jesus already had all of God's presence. Jesus already before the cross, he had all the holiness. He had the relationship with God. In some ways, you could say, why did he need to endure the cross? What was the joy of the cross? What was the joy for him that he endured the cross? And the answer is, because he did it for you. He endured the cross because he loves you. He endured the cross because he wanted you to be able to experience the fullness of God's love and all the spiritual blessings that he had. He endured the cross because he loves you so, so much that he wanted to have you. And he wanted you to be set free from sin and shame and darkness and endure the incredible love of God and to know the incredible love for God. So he set his eyes on you. And he says, set your eyes on me. This term, we've tried to articulate something of what we're about in this church over these coming months and coming years. And we've described it in three ways. One is we want to be a house of prayer. Secondly, we want to be a hub of practical love. And thirdly, we want to be a training ground for multiplication. We want to be a house of prayer. We want everyone who comes into our community and each of us to have our hearts so set on Jesus that we absolutely love being with him. We love being with him on our own. We love being with him in a hub. We love being with him with others. We love being with him in this place. That we become temples of the Holy Spirit. We become places where God's presence rests all day, every day, 24/7. That we ourselves become a house of prayer, but also as a church, we become a house of prayer. And it strikes me that if we're captivated by Jesus, we will want to be a house of prayer. That's where we will want to be. And secondly, we want to be a hub of practical love. That means individually that we will be compassionate people who are doing acts of kindness to our neighbors and to our friends and to our work colleagues. But also as a church, we are doing many, many, many acts of kindness collectively, either through our hubs or through our collective body. We run Safe Haven Women for vulnerable women, and we run Safe Haven Men for vulnerable men. We run a TOTS program. We're going to be starting a SPEAR program of employability in the new year at some point. We run a youth program, kids program. We run so many things. We will have a Ukrainian sanctuary for our brothers and sisters from Ukraine. If we're captivated by Jesus, we want to be either part of it or we'll be cheering on those who are volunteering to be part of those things. We'll be delighted that our giving goes towards those things. We'll be so captivated by Jesus that we'll do those things together. And thirdly, we want to be a training ground for multiplication. And by that, what we mean is that we want to not just be disciples of Jesus, following Jesus in our everyday lives, but our lives will somehow be transferred to other people that they become disciples of Jesus as well. That we won't keep it to ourselves, that we will be people who are sharing our lives. And through that, as we share our lives, we'll be looking out for others and we'll be praying for them, desperate for them. We're so captivated by Jesus that we want to see our friends and our neighbors and the people we work with come to know Jesus for themselves, because we know we're so captivated by him, and the difference that they could make, the difference could be made when those people come to know Jesus. That we become disciples who make disciples, and we'll be training each other somehow. We'll be supporting each other to be looking out for those people, praying for them. And one of the ways we can do that is by running Alpha. It might be you've got Alpha, through Alpha. There's some of your friends might come to know Jesus this year somehow. We are offering to train people up to run Alpha. You could run Alpha maybe with a few friends, maybe just 2 people meeting in a coffee shop. Get the videos, go through them week by week, meet with them and go through Alpha with them. There's lots of ways, lots of tools that we have to help you think about who are the people who will be disciples of Jesus through me over this coming year. When I went up to university, there was one guy who was one of the rugby players in our hall of residence, and he was called Andy. He was a big guy, blonde, very popular, loved beer, played rugby, and everyone just knew him as one of the rugby players who'd just go and drink lots of beer and play rugby. And for some reason, me and some friends prayed for him. He didn't know it, but we were praying for him. We would be praying that he would come to know Jesus. And it seemed really, really unlikely. And I remember one day after the first year, managing to invite him to church. He came along to church and he absolutely hated it. He just really disliked it. And I just remember thinking, that's it. That's never going to happen. About a year or two afterwards, somehow, miraculously, he came to know Jesus. People shared Jesus with him. And he became a follower of Jesus. My daughter Jemima's just gone up to Nottingham University this week. And we've been looking at churches for her. And I looked through one or two of the churches. And there's one church in Nottingham city centre called Heart. Sort of Pentecostal, independent Pentecostal church. Looks great. Looked on the website. Looked down the staff. The operations manager is Andy Dickin. Think, is that amazing, Jesus? I still can't believe it. I find it really hard. I looked at the website. I saw his name. I think he's still a follower of Jesus. Not only that, but he's actually working for a church. I sort of tell myself, he actually really became a Christian. He really must be a Christian because he's working as an operations manager for this church. All around you, there are people, there are potential disciples of Jesus. You are interacting with them day by day. And may you be so captivated by Jesus that somehow, through your prayer, through your words, through your example, the people around you, your neighbors, your friends, that they might become disciples of Jesus. So, let us fix our eyes on Jesus. He's the perfecter and he's author of our faith. And he loves you. He's captivated by you. And may we be captivated by him this term, this year. Amen.
Thanks for tuning in to the HTH Church podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, why not share it with someone you think would appreciate it? And be sure to subscribe to our channel to get notified when new episodes are published. Thanks again for listening, and we hope you have a great day.